Welcome to Homie House, everybody. Episode 1. I am your host, Gare, and this...
I'm Rec. How's it going?
We're here to represent the Fort Wayne Melee scene and have a good time, spread positivity, good vibes.
Hell yeah. This is going to be a good podcast. We're going to have a lot of fun with this tonight.
So, we're going to start off and we're just going to kind of talk about what we want to do with the podcast, what we hope to accomplish. Want to spread like awareness of our scene and all of our good players that we got.
We've had a lot of stuff going on recently. I'm sure a lot of players in Indiana have noticed Fort Wayne in particular having a lot more tournaments happening, a lot more weeklies happening, and all that kind of jazz. So this will be fun to delve into.
So I started playing around like 2016-ish, and it's definitely changed a lot since then, especially post-COVID.
Oh yeah, definitely. So on my end, I was on hiatus for about 5 years, and coming back post-COVID, prior to pre-COVID, we've had a lot of changes in our Fort Wayne scene, and it's going to be a lot of fun to delve into. Homie House, for example, has come back.
Oh yeah. I used to run Homie House back in 2017. It used to be a weekly, but now it's more like a bi-monthly if you're lucky.
Yep, we've had it. It's kind of been off and on, honestly, since the IPFW days, if not the Xscape days, and that would have been upwards of 8 years ago in our local scene. So to give you guys some context, we've had stuff prior to that 8-year mark, but Gary and myself weren't involved at the time.
Nope.
We actually had, when we got into the scene, we had been playing at a venue called Xscape locally. And that's kind of where our scene really started picking up. And we moved to IPFW, a college in Fort Wayne, and our scene kind of blew up once we moved over there. My hiatus started in those IPFW days. So going from a great turnout at IPFW, I came back, what was it, early 2022? And we were doing a double laser weekly is what it was called at Combat Ops. And for a lot of those weeklies, it was just me, Rodney, and Robbie, the three of us in our local scene trying to kick stuff off. And now we got a full-fledged weekly again. We got our monthlies going on, and I'm sure some of you guys have seen Fort Land, one of our regional tournaments we have out of Fort Wayne. We've had a few other things going on too, so yeah. We've had a lot. It's been awesome.
After the IPFW days, we went to this card shop called Hot Sauce, and I think that's been technically our longest venue. It was like a year or two, and then COVID happened. They let us come back after COVID, but not for very long. Then we got a sick bowling alley gig, and that didn't last more than 2 weeklies or so.
I remember.
It was so hot and crammed.
If I remember right, Rodney was talking about the space. And I heard it wasn't the most accommodating.
Nah, but you could buy booze there because it was a bowling alley, so I liked it.
That's a huge plus. If I were active during that time, it would have been a great time.
And then I was going to college at the time, the last like 4 years, so I would hop in and out, and I would go to the double lasers sometimes, but you know, like they weren't really that popping. I mean, it was a Tuesday, so.
Yeah. Well, and now we, so for a bit there, we actually had an online weekly. I'm sure some of you guys have probably known about that. We called it Full Dive.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You may have seen both of us on there. Oftentimes we were doing commentary.
Shout out Havoc.
Yep, Havoc, you're awesome. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity. But that was a big weekly we had going on that actually we stopped doing that. Would have been a little short of 2 months ago, if I remember right.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Whenever Nintendo put out that new rule set or whatever, it kind of shook some of the homies, you know? But we're here to tell the homies that it's gonna be okay.
Hell yeah.
The Homie House is here for you, and we're gonna all get to know each other a lot better. And that's what I'm most excited about is, like, you know, we've all been playing Melee and stuff together for a long time, but I'm ready to get to know these people and put them on and hear about some of the history that I wasn't involved in, you know?
Exactly. And going forward, I'm sure you guys will see a lot of guests from the Fort Wayne scene in particular. We have a lot of stuff in the works on that end. But One of the things I did want to talk about, we do have some new stuff going on in our area right now as well. You guys have obviously been keen on the Fort Wayne Weeklies we've had. That's a direct relationship with Odyssey. Effectively, Odyssey has helped us kind of revitalize our scene, and so I'm sure some of you guys have popped up from out of region, seen our weeklies actually kicking off again. They've helped fund us, they've helped get us out to regionals and majors in our area, on top of helping just fun in general, on top of venue and all that kind of jazz, something that I work directly with them on. Several other people in our local scene work directly with them on. Going forward as well, these weeklies, we've been able to implement a pretty hefty bonus spot. The normal expectation right now on top of our normal entry fees is about $25 to $50, and we always supply pizza.
Pizza!
That's something yours truly has been trying to kick into gear, so there's a lot of incentive to be able to come out to the weekly, see how you perform, and even if you're not happy with how you perform or you don't want to perform, there's always free pizza and a lot of homies to hang out with. So,
and the best part is when we do get a decent turnout, we got round robin pools, so you always get to play more than 2 sets.
Yep.
And we've always had amateur brackets and stuff like that. Now, this past year, 2023, we started up the PR again too, and we're going to be announcing the PR at the end of this video. So stay tuned. Do you know how many players were in our scene this year?
So if I remember right, I was the person primarily focusing on PR, and keep in mind, I wasn't super particular about whether people were in or out of region as long as we had frequent attendance. That was the main goal. Get people to attend and have something to work towards. So if I remember right, it was between 40 to 47 people we had on the PR overall. And what the PR notice that you guys will be seeing later on will be, you'll at the minimum be seeing about the top 13 to 14 players we have in our scene. So,
oh yeah.
And that does include honorable mentions as well. We do have a few really good players in our local area that aren't able to make it to weeklies, so will not be present on the formal PR, but will be present in the honorable mentions. So, now, I did have some questions for you, Gare.
Oh, shit.
So I was very curious, man. Oh, when did you start playing Melee? If I remember right, it was around the same time as I, but...
So it started out like this. I was chilling on RuneScape, minding my own business, and I was in a skilling clan, and somebody was like, hey, you should watch the Smash Bros. Documentary. And I was like, alright. So this was early 2015. I watched it for like the next 2 days, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I ordered a GameCube and a controller and the game, and I made my friends start playing it casually at my house. But we were playing on like a LCD TV, you know.
So out of curiosity, did you start with Ice Climbers?
You know, in those days, I'm not really sure. I think I was just like trying to unlock all the characters, you know, playing through adventure mode. I think, though, I always liked Ice Climbers because I always thought Chudat was funny. And one of the first tournaments that I ever watched before I played was EVO 2015. And I saw the Hugs vs. Chudat. I saw that live, and I was just dying laughing. I was like, alright, I'm going to try out those guys next time I play. But, you know, I tried to play, and I got into the Facebook group, and I was like, hey, I've got this stuff. Is it? But basically, they told me, like, hey, you need a CRT to play. So I kind of got discouraged, kind of walked away for a little bit. And then eventually I moved out. I got my own house, and my Wii broke, and I was like, oh shit. So I got a Wii U, and I got Smash 4, and I started playing with my friends. I was like, this is great. And I started going to bar tournaments, and I was placing second at every single one. And then I met Voorhees and Grayson and Korn. They were all there, and I was like, oh, what's up? And they were telling me, oh, you should come to... you should play Melee instead. And I was like, all right. And so, like, eventually I signed up for this tournament. I think it was 2016. It was like the end of 2016. It was it's like Smash the... It wasn't Smash the Record. It It was a tournament in a movie theater, so it had a cool name. I just forget it. And I met Rodney there. He was in my pools, and he was like, "Come to the weeklies." So I was like, "Okay, yes, sir."
So, actually, if you don't mind me asking, was there a character you gravitated towards at all before Ices during that start of your playing Melee?
So I started playing with Lil Ray and D-Mac and Cronin. Like, those were the three, and they're all, like, way better than me. Like, I was just starting out. And so D-Mac played Captain Falcon, Lil Ray played Marth, and Cronin played Luigi. And so I was trying to play Sheik and Puff, but I just never really clicked. And then I started playing Ice Climbers, and I was like, hell yeah, dude. I was like, if anything, you know, I'll just play Ice Climbers for fun, and maybe Nana will get me some good kills, you know, something like that. And I have to say, at my first tournament ever, my first Melee tournament, I won my first set.
Oh, wow. That's actually really good.
I beat a Sheik in pools.
Whew.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players I know of where the first, lowballing 3 to 4 weeklies, but usually the first 4 to 5 months of showing up to a weekly, you'll have a really hard time taking a set. And, you know, that's kind of down to how Melee is, you know. There's going to be a lot of skill ceiling, or there's going to be a lot of skill levels you have to reach before you can start really getting to the point of taking sets off people, let alone understanding the interactions that are happening.
Yeah.
So on that note, I know you and I both, throughout our glory years of being young, we both have dabbled in adventure mode a lot. And I'm curious, what is the highest difficulty you've ever beaten on adventure mode? And if you don't mind me adding something in there, what was the best highlight you've ever had playing adventure mode?
I don't know. It's just great. Everything about it is so fun. It's like I wish all platformers were like had that much freedom in the movement and stuff.
That's very valid.
I like how it's a little different every time. So, like, you know, if you get a certain time on the first level, then like Luigi pops up, or you know, Falco or Fox pops up, depending. And then like I'm not sure if I'm describing adventure mode or the other one. I forget, but
yeah,
all the story modes are great in Melee.
No, actually, I think if I remember right on both ends, classic mode has variations depending on character and progression. I think adventure mode does as well. Definitely on the character end.
Yeah.
Yeah, adventure mode's a lot of fun. I remember when I was playing Melee all the time, I had started myself back when I probably would have been in 4th grade, played adventure mode nonstop.
Hell yeah.
My goal was to be the best in the cul-de-sac. And to be able to beat it without having to do any kind of resets on very hard mode.
Oh, I never got that far, I don't think.
It took me...
I know I definitely beat it on normal, maybe hard.
Yeah.
I'm being real with y'all, you know.
Now, I'm not gonna own up to if I ever actually got to that threshold. But so, if you don't mind, so as an Ices player, I know you have a lot of matchups that are pretty frustrating. There's a few I can think of. I know Valken's something that is pretty difficult for both the characters we use.
Oh yeah.
So on that end, what is your favorite matchup?
I don't know. It's like all Spaceys here in Fort Wayne, so it's hard to say it's not like my favorite. I think Falco's probably my favorite matchup. You get the weird desyncs off of laser and...
Yeah. And honestly, power shielding as a minigame is so fun to force.
Yeah.
So Falco is a lot of fun. If you don't mind me throwing you a wild card, though, if you had a low tier main, who would it be?
Oh, I would definitely probably play Pichu, Roy, dual main.
Now, and on that end, as a Pichu or a Roy, do you have any preferred matchups on low tiers with either of those characters?
Against other low tiers, not really. But I really like playing Roy against Peach.
Hell yeah.
Peach and Puff, Roy's really fun to play against.
Yeah, that makes sense. So throughout the years, I know you've been to a lot of tournaments. Actually, behind us, there is a fancy controller from one of those tournaments. And yeah, Evo controller right there. So throughout the years, I know you've been able to accumulate a lot of things through these tournaments.
Oh yeah.
Which has been your favorite?
Oh man, I don't know. They're all different, like different experiences. Like it's hard not to say like Evo because they had the giant stadium seating, you know, and it was truly crazy. And like it was I went to Evo 2018, which is the one that Leffen won.
Ooh.
And Armada had this like crazy comeback run, and that was like the last time I really saw like Armada in tip-top shape, I think. Like,
yeah, that was probably about the time he. Yeah. If I remember right, you had a really good time at the recent. Was it Riptide? If I remember right.
Oh yeah, Riptide's a good time every year. I'm trying to put my Fort Wayne homies on to go into Riptide next year for sure.
Ooh, yeah. And, yeah, if you guys didn't know, one of the things that we did with this current Fort Wayne PR, one of the incentive factors we had was there's various points throughout the year in a season where we'll probably have tournaments line up that are bigger. Kilroy and Fort Lane are good examples. Every once in a while for these tournaments to get players out, myself as well as Odyssey like to pull money in to try to get people to come out to these. Kilroy was a big one where we had most of our top 8 show up. And so on that end, something to keep in the back of your heads, something to look forward to with PR, but also correlating with what you're mentioning about getting these people out to these tournaments.
Yep.
It's definitely within the realm of possibility. So
be on the lookout.
Now on that end, I know you guys have known we mentioned our online weekly a little while ago, and we both have had some pretty active Slippy careers.
Oh no!
Myself, for example, I'm notorious for having a plethora of Slippy accounts.
Oh yeah, he's got burners for days.
Yep. So on that end, what's the best rank that you've gotten in Slippy? If you don't mind me asking, and outside of outside of our online weeklies, have there been any other online weeklies or tournaments that you've given a shot to?
So I think my ranked record last Slippy stats or whatever, I was silver 2, and I was like 7-5. So I was like, all right, I'm up. I quit. You know.
That's valid.
You know, honestly, I only play like 1 hour of Melee a week or so. You know, these days. So
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat on that end.
But as for other online tournaments, I've entered. It's like Tired of O2 before one time, and I ended up getting 4th or 5th place. I forget. I lost to a Kirby and a Link.
Oh, wow.
Wait, no, I didn't lose to Link. I lost to a Kirby and something else, though. Something like that.
Yeah. Probably another... Yeah. Man, dude, on the end of Kirby, though, Kirby is so fun to play.
I love Kirby. I love Kirby more than Ice Climbers. Like, I have Kirby plushies and shit. Like, that's my boy.
So, we'll delve into some of my aspects a bit more later on, but I'm sure you guys have noticed the Samus right here. I'm our local region's Samus player, right? And so one of the issues I had with Slippy, and you probably can relate with this, is having people want to play a game with you in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
And so why I was bringing up the multiple Slippy accounts earlier is oftentimes when you're in Gare's situation or mine, we're playing I call them high mid tiers. You have a hard time getting sets lined up, and so I tend to get burner accounts so I can go on ranked without having any guilt about my set wins.
Yeah.
And I can grind that way because they're gonna have a lot of impact on their account if they decide to quit out on me in that way, as opposed to unranked where you're lucky to get 1 out of every 10 games, not getting an immediate quit out on site. So.
Oh yeah.
Now on that end though. I'm sure throughout these online tournaments, as well as all these local tournaments that you and I both have been at, you've probably accumulated a few player preferences. So if you don't mind me asking, I'm sure you got a few favorites in our local scene. Who's your favorite player? And just to make this a little more loaded for you, who's your favorite player in Fort Wayne, and who's your favorite top player? Just in general.
Honestly, right now, my favorite player is Nidus. He's just so sick.
Yep.
He's a homie, you know. But, you know, he's new to Fort Wayne, so I'll give a different answer. Let's think. Favorite player? It's probably Jafar, you know. Like, honestly, it speaks for himself, you know.
Yeah, Matt is a really nice guy. Matt's also how I got into the local scene. In case you guys were wondering, Matt's been a long-term guy, best friends with Rodney. He's known Dylan for just as long, I'm sure. Yeah, if any of you guys have ever been to the Fort Wayne scene, any tournaments you've seen with Jafar there, we don't have to elaborate.
Yeah, you'll have to come out to see, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
As for my favorite, like, top players, well, Chudat is my all-time favorite player, but he is definitely not active these days.
I think he's your GOAT, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, he's my GOAT, but I don't know. There was no real big ICs this year. Not saying that I only like ICs, you know. I was a really big J-Mook fan at the end of this year, but I just feel like my heart got broken a little, you know. So we're working it out.
Actually, on that end, what was it? There was a set recently that's very impactful for me.
Morse code
versus J-Mook. And hey, it wasn't even on stream, guys. I had the inside. I was on the Samus R&D chat. These guys were sitting behind Morse with a cell phone recording the CRT. I got the full clip, man.
Oh, hell yeah.
Morris is a great player, but man, J-Mook should have won that in my opinion, and I feel like that might have been where that perspective for you might have changed a bit.
I mean, he also went and beat IBDW the same, or Cody, the same tournament, right? Or
exactly.
Something like that.
No, I think...
Or like the next tournament, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. No, I will say this. J-Mook, in my opinion, top 5.
Oh, that's a hard take.
I do love me some Sheik. Again, as a Samus main. Things carry over pretty well to Sheik. Now on that end, J-Mook being your GOAT.
Throat goat.
How did you feel about Slug this year?
Slug was super inactive. So he went to like 2 tournaments, but he beat J-Mook at the nightclub regional.
I remember.
So I mean that's cool, I guess. I've had a Slug lesson before. He's pretty cool, pretty good vibes. He also has a RuneScape profile picture, so I mean it's just a nice climber thing, I guess.
Hell yeah!
You can see my Max cape out here in the back, you know, for the people watching on YouTube.
So, now we got a pretty good idea of what you've kind of done throughout the years now with Melee. You've had a pretty well-rounded career, and as you know, a lot of our Fort Wayne scene's been the same people for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us homies have been hanging out the last 8 years. You know, on my end, I've had a few outside hobbies for Melee that you and I have kind of discussed and been able to share. Outside of Melee, what kind of stuff do you have going on?
Right now, not much. I just went to school for art for the last 4 years, so I'm just really still wanting to be super creative and creating a lot. I like to make graphics. I like to draw physical art. I like to do like iPad drawings and stuff like that, you know. I kind of want to make some stuff for my tournaments coming up. I make all the graphics for Homie House, obviously, you know.
Yeah, and actually on that end, you've been helping the Fort Wayne scene in general with that kind of stuff as well. Really good. Now, I know you mentioned RuneScape as a side hobby as well, and I know a lot of the guys in our scene are into that.
RuneScape is not a hobby. RuneScape is a lifelong addiction that I have had since 2004, and like 8 hours a day since 2004 up until about 2018. 2019 is when I like maxed, and I honestly haven't played more than like 2 hours of RuneScape a week or whatever since then. Like maybe every now and then, but honestly, I log in like once a week, chat with my friends, and get off now. You know.
I mean, it qualifies really good for that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when I use RuneScape, it's to use it as a chat box.
Yeah. I've got homies from like 10, 15 years ago easily on my RuneScape friend list, you know.
Yeah.
And I think RuneScape is a big reason why a lot of the Fort Wayne homies started connecting in the first place, because we were bringing it up at Fort Con when mobile came out, and Robbie was like, "Oh shit, you playing RuneScape?" And then Tracy, and you know, we all started talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, on that end, if I remember right, even Cubby and myself were playing RuneScape. I wasn't even active in the scene at that point, if I remember right, but I still managed to get sucked in.
Yeah. Mobile is great, honestly. The chat box sucks, but everything else is really good. It's like it's solid by itself.
I mean, yeah, I got suggested RuneLite a few times as an option to use with RuneScape. I don't know if you guys are familiar with RuneScape, but it's effectively a way better client. Would that be the right word?
It used to be a browser game.
Yeah.
But now it's its own client.
Yeah. And it has a lot of additive features. Now, granted, the mobile version's still good. You're just going to have a lot more manual labor.
Yeah.
So, yeah. On that end, I know in the past, bringing up some of the Edgy Glory years, you used to do music. Have you had any recent tie-ins with wanting to delve back into playing?
You know, every now and then I'll be like, I want to make a song again, but I just don't really got the time. And I don't know. I feel like I accomplished a lot of my goals. I feel like I accomplished. I don't really set goals that are like too difficult, you know, honestly. And so like I feel like same with Melee. I feel like I've accomplished almost all of my Melee goals, you know, like.
Yeah. Now, actually, on that end, what has been the highlight of your Melee career? What would you consider the best goal you've reached?
The best goal that I've ever done was I went to CEO 2022, and I made it out of pools. I got like 60... Wait, no, I got 49th. Yeah, I got 49th. Nice. I played like all Falcos. I fucked them up. It was great.
And you got Robbie and Rodney. We got a lot of Falcos in Fort Wayne.
When I was playing pools in Florida, I was like, none of these guys are as good as Rodney. This is like so easy.
Yeah, that tends to be the norm, I feel, in our scene. You play Toast, Robbie, Bard, Voorhees.
Yeah, we got the spacey mix up, you know.
Yeah, you tend to go out of region and you're like, dang, I can put in the work.
Yeah.
So on that end of those Fort Wayne players, do you have I know we kind of delved into it earlier, but throughout all the years, you know of a lot of players from when we popped in and Grayson was still active and Dylan was doing his thing, and hell, Ori was showing up to weeklies all the time back then.
Yeah.
You saw those players back then to now. I know you mentioned Nidus. I know you mentioned your actual GOAT, but I'm kind of curious. Do you have any honorable mentions? And if you don't mind, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Cubby.
I don't know about Cubby. You know, he's like Jafar Jr.
Yeah, true.
Not really. Cubby is definitely a homie. Really more your homie than my homie, but Cubby's like the best player that was still like super homie, you know? Like I was like, wow, this dude is like so good, and he's still like being chill as fuck with me is tight, is welcoming, you know?
Cubby and I, we've been best friends for, let me think here. I would have been 17 or 18 at the time, so it's been 11, going on 12 years.
Wow.
We've been best friends since well before Melee, and yeah, they're a great player. They've been around in our scene for a very long time. They actually moved recently, so rip. We got bamboozled.
Yeah. It doesn't hit the same, you know. We're trying though. We're trying.
Now, Cubby, if you guys aren't knowledgeable, is a Fox main, but Cubby is also the notorious every day's a new main kind of player.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Except when they're intoxicated, in which case they're a Marth main. So, but yeah, they are one of our Fort Wayne classics, and still my best friends. So,
all right, we're gonna switch it over to you.
Okay.
So when did you start getting into competitive Melee? What year?
So, I actually have a pretty back and forth history with Melee, right? So, I technically started playing way back when I was a kid. Right when Melee came out, I was one of those guys where in the cul-de-sac I lived on, I had to be the best player. Now, back then, though, I was, casual kid, didn't have any idea what this tech was, and half the tech we have now didn't exist at all back then in concept. I think wave dashing was getting figured out at the time, right? And I kind of played solo for the bulk of my childhood. When I was 16, though, I did give competitive a shot for about a month. Tried to do the tech skill grind, right?
Uh-huh.
And I actually started with Roy back then, believe it or not.
Ooh.
On the competitive end, because I was told it might be easier to learn the tech. But to preface that, I had started as a Samus main when I was a kid onward. Metroid's my favorite franchise, always has been.
Which leads me to my next question. Why Samus?
Why Samus? So, hell yeah, I love going into this. So I was a wee youngster, and I had a shtick with platformer games, right? Dad got me hooked on Super Mario Bros. On the NES back when I was a little kiddo. And that gravitated towards the very first Metroid. And on top of that, I actually didn't get into modern Metroids till Prime 2 came out, right? Got into Prime 2 around 2004, and that dumped me into full obsession over the franchise. Now, granted, Metroid in general impacted me, that's why I started with Samus. But, yeah, 2004 onward, I was hard convinced. Any game with Samus in it, I'm going to use Samus. So,
yeah. Samus is in 64, correct?
Yep, I
Yeah,
use
man.
Samus in 64 as well. Yep. I think
So-
she's pretty bad in that, though.
Yeah, I don't know anything much about 64, honestly. I didn't grow up with a GameCube, I didn't start till way later. My friends had GameCubes and I'd watch them play, but when it was like my turn to get like past controller, I would just like try any character. I'd be like, Mewtwo was probably my go-to when in 2001,
Mewtwo was the GOAT character in 2001 because you'd have to. Every kid I knew did the classic trick of, I hope my parents don't see my GameCube on overnight, so I can hit the time frame to unlock Mewtwo.
I grew up with a fucking Dreamcast, and I played Power Stone instead.
Ooh.
When people came to my house, they're like, I don't know how to play this. I'm like, just get the gems and run around and...
Well, you have a Dreamcast, dude. Don't you have to get like what was it, Fantasy Star Online? Was that the Dreamcast?
I don't know.
I still play that to this day. There's a private server. That's like my
Your
RuneScape.
RuneScape, yeah. Yeah, but you also play World of Warcraft, correct?
Okay, so preface.
Okay.
Sorry. I do this, by the way. I go on tangents. Starting with Final Fantasy XIV. That's what got me into WoW. I'm actually way more into retail, believe it or not, than Classic, though I do love Classic as well. So,
Is retail just current WoW?
yeah.
Okay.
So retail's all the expansions added up.
Everything,
And obviously, continuity-wise, the game is going to be good when you're playing the recent expansion. Granted, they've done recent fixes. Classic's going to be your vanilla through those first two expansions. Typically are what people are looking for. Wrath of the Lich King in particular. I'm sure you've heard D-Mac talk about it.
Yeah. D-Mac plays hella games.
And on the end of you playing RuneScape with these fellows, I'm actually doing the same thing with Ty or Ducky and D-Mac as well.
Hell yeah.
I've kind of kiltered off here a bit, but we started doing a Season of Discovery on World of Warcraft Classic together, so it's been going on.
That's what's up.
Mm-hmm.
D-Mac is one of my childhood friends since like 7th grade, 8th grade, something like that. We used to live in the same neighborhood, ride bikes to each other's house and stuff. Hung out, you know. He went away to college for a while, but he'd always come back. And then when he came back, that's when he was like, he forced me to play Melee rather than Smash 4. Yeah. I was like, what is this called?
Actually, on the end of DMAC too, like DMAC was a big practice partner for me when I had actually really gotten into the scene back about 8 years ago during Xscape. One of the things that I did with a lot of these fellas and how I got to know a lot of these fellas was Cubby and I had the sunroom. I was decked out, had KFC banners across the wall. We had a Papa John's one like behind our setup. We had 3 TVs, Smash 4, Melee, The Office exclusively playing. And yeah, we'd invite everyone over. DMAC was one of them. And we just play Melee all night. It was a lot of fun. That's actually what kept me active in the scene for a really long time. Because, you know, I go to Weekly and Friday back at IPFW.
Yep. Friday Melee hits so different.
Yep.
Just like when you're done with work and you just, like, nothing matters, you know? Give it what you have left, you know? Give it your all.
And, yeah, like, a lot of these guys, that'd be one of the things we would do. Friday would be my wind-down day, so we go to the Weekly and then get these guys together to come back to my place, so we play some Melee.
So, as a Samus main, living in a spacey city, what's your favorite matchup?
So, I am pretty happy with Fox. I absolutely adore Valko. Valko is one of those matchups where I can do a lot of testing and mind games and play around how they're feeling out neutral. And while there's a lot of stuff Valko can do against Samus, god dang do I love those Power Shield mini games. It's a lot of fun to play, it's a lot of fun to capitalize on, and yeah, I really enjoy that factor. Now, on the end of a top tier character, or someone outside of top tier that I really enjoy playing against, outside of that, favorite's actually Young Link. Coming from a Samus main perspective, I have a few friends who main Young Link, one of my best friends, Dylan, in particular. And so, always really enjoyed the matchup. It's a lot of us just doing crazy, wacky stuff to each other that's just like super
Can only
gimmicky.
imagine the projectiles.
Because, well, if you play the matchup legitimately, it's just us camping each other for 8 minutes.
Hell
yeah.
So, you know, you've been playing a while. What's, like, your craziest set? Like, what's your biggest W? Like,
okay, so...
I know we were talking beforehand about, like, PR and wins and stuff like that, but I'm not really sure what I know you're really consistent, but I'm not sure what your biggest wins and stuff really are.
So, locally, in the past, I had a set that was super impactful to me, and you probably have noticed me bringing it up recently. The money match I had against Toast.
Oh,
this was a long time ago.
All right, tell us this.
But this is when Toast was getting good, right? And this is right when I was leaving the scene back in the day, right before my big hiatus. So, Toast was getting sick of running into me in bracket and getting eliminated. And so, he challenged me to a money match, and it was right after his kick versus a player named King Potato. He happened to take a win and popped off against King Potato and then walked up to me and challenged me to a money match. And so we set it going, and I ended up winning. I think it was 3-1 in my favor.
Nice.
And yeah, it was nice. I felt really good about it. And it actually ended up making Toast go down the rabbit hole of learning Samus over the course of the next few years. If you know Apple Smosh, which was a really big Samus player in the Indiana scene, Apple Smosh was their primary practice post me to really learn that matchup.
They're really good. I've talked to them before, and we're good friends with Wobbles back in the day. So when we played Icy Samus, it was terrible for me, but it was really fun.
Now, if you don't mind me bringing up something more recent, though, the set I've liked the most, and this is kind of for meme purposes, this is actually pretty recent, too. So I had been able to make it out to a weekly fairly recently, and it was one where we didn't have a great turnout, simply because of everything seasonal going on at that time. And I had just gotten off of like a 14-hour shift, and I showed up at the weekly, and I said, boy howdy, I don't want to perform, I'm going to use Kirby all night.
Oh,
And lo and behold, not only did I not get last, I got fourth.
nice.
And this wasn't low tiers, this was a normal bracket. And the best thing I did was it, I think, 3-2 against Nidus. I kind of played a little gimmicky, though. It wasn't like a legit Kirby win, and they are playing gimmicky towards me as well. So the first game they used Fox, bodied me. Second game I said, let's see how this goes. Lost the second time. Game 3 I said, I'm going to go out with a bang. I think I'm going to switch to Samus for one game.
Oh.
And I got a hard win. And I said, all right, no, I want to use Kirby. So I switched to Kirby game 4, and they switched to Valken because they thought I was sandbagging. And then I thought they were sandbagging because they picked Valken.
Valken's good.
And I ended up winning those next 2 games and got the win. And yeah, it was a really fun set. Nidus and I had a really good time. And yeah, I really, really look forward to doing something like that again.
Now, if you guys don't know, it's a Homie House special to always have a low tier bracket. So you'll hear us probably bring up low tiers pretty often. It's a staple of the Homie House.
And low tiers is a lot of fun to play. A lot of different variables you got to think about.
What do you see happening in the next couple of years in the overall Melee world?
So, if you asked me 2 months ago, it probably would have been pretty depressing. But it's
Shout out
actually,
Nintendo.
Hell yeah. It's actually pretty hopeful, though. I think in terms of just our Fort Wayne scene, I think things are going to steadily be picking up the pace as they have been, because that support's not going anywhere, and it hasn't gone anywhere in the last 8 years,
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the grand scheme of things, I'm hopeful on the end of consistent players continually coming in, especially with stuff like Slippy. But I'm a little worried as well that now that Melee's getting to this point in its lifespan, and we've had so much going on, Smash Ultimate's been out for so long, and they've been really carrying weight with that game. I could see Melee starting to die down to more of a local-esque thing in the next 5 years or so, but I do think it's still going to be highly profitable for people to play competitively, as well as highly profitable on the emotional spectrum.
I was gonna say profitable, not money,
So-
right?
I mean, money being there, but
the Fort Wayne weeklies, you can make a nice living coming off of that pot bonus every week, right?
yeah. Hey, I'm giving away my paychecks, guys.
We're keeping Rod and Toast and Voorhees, fed, roof over their head.
It's what us high mid tiers have to do, We're forever locked into not getting first. So what we have to do.
Whoa. Speak for yourself.
So the one up I have is, hey Rod, I'm your income.
So what else besides video games do you like doing?
So I'm actually super into music. I did it professionally for a few years. I was in a smaller, almost fully local touring act. Say local because we were signed to a smaller indie label out of Michigan, but did that for a few years, and that's actually what I've done for the last 15 years off and on. That's my primary hobby. Been playing bass for 16 technically, and guitar for 15, and I hope to keep going down that avenue.
Oh yeah. Maybe you guys will hear a little jingle.
Yeah, currently I've been doing lo-fi tracks with my brother, where I record stems of guitar and bass. We come up with a few riff ideas, and then I send that to him, and he does producing, mixing, mastering. He essentially turns it into a full lo-fi track, doing all the back-end stuff, so it's been a lot of fun.
Bringing it back to Melee, have you ever played Melee outside of Fort Wayne?
Outside of Fort Wayne, honestly, outside of online weeklies, I've never actually gone to any regionals or majors. Fort Wayne regionals are the outlier, and I've gone to was it Kilroy? But it's always been to be a viewer or to help people get down there.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I've actually, in terms of my performance in the Indiana scene,
it's all Fort Wayne.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big unknown. Oftentimes what happens is I pop on the Indiana Discord and someone will ask me for friendlies to learn the Samus matchup, and they'll be blindsided that there's a Samus that can do something that's no one's known about in Fort Wayne this whole time.
So, if you could go to any major, what would it be? Do you watch competitive Melee?
I do. Albeit sparingly. At this point, I was in it a lot more earlier. Evo would probably be a big one, but
they ain't got Melee.
What was the thing something I was eyeing the other day that I was like super looking forward to?
I think Genesis is coming up in January, I think, and then we just had that first 10 match that just happened.
Yeah, I think it was tied to that. That's probably what I'm thinking of. I'm probably thinking of the Genesis that's coming up. Now, on the end, Riptide's been a big one I've always wanted to go to. Honestly, from seeing stuff that you've done at Riptide and how good of a time you've had, and I don't know, was it Riptide around 2018 or so where you had like the pictures and stuff on Facebook of your tournament?
Yeah,
it had
that was Evo. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So Riptide, like, it was going to start right before the pandemic, and I bought tickets, I booked room and everything, and then 2020, canceled everything. But when it came back, it was the first major back. So the first Riptide was like the first in-person tournament.
Wow. So
it was like, I'm pretty sure Cody beat Plup, and that was Grands.
Yep, I think I remember that. Yeah, I've been eyeing Genesis a bit. Evo's been the hype, but again, that kind of stems from my background with Samus. That makes sense. Certain sets that have been played at Evo that have defined me as a player. So,
are you talking about Plup versus Leffen?
Maybe.
Oh yeah, that was a great. Like I said, Evo 2015 was the first one I watched, and that happened also in top 8. Good times.
Believe it or not, though, Plup's not my favorite player. Plup used to be my favorite player. It actually changed when they dropped Samus as their primary. I was very unhappy about that. My current favorite's actually Wevens right now.
Oh.
Wevens is super impactful for me as a player. I really like how they strategically think through stuff. But on top of that, they're really good about analyzing their spacing and optimizing it for any matchup they're in. One of the things I always like to think about was the Salt versus Wevens set at Coinbox 52.
Oh.
He was always in the perfect position to back air at the arc of the up B and against Salt. And like that's something I want to be able to do. I want to be able to do that in all matchups. So that's why Wevens so goated for me.
Hey.
He's a slick player. And actually, shout out to Robbie. Robbie manages to always PM me on Discord when Wevens is on a stream somewhere, so thank you very much.
That's what's up. Yeah, we've been talking a lot about all these players, and if you're not too familiar, we're going to introduce you to them. We're going to start going over the PR here in a minute.
And actually on that end, I did want to say one more shout out to Robbie. Robbie is my goated Fort Wayne player. Always has been. Always will be.
It's a good answer.
The dude is the slickest Valko I've ever seen. While, in my eyes, Rodney is, performance-wise, a better Valko, I love the ideas Robbie has.
Yeah.
Robbie has some of the best combo ideas. He thinks through things so well. Like,
the Fort Wayne Discord clip will randomly get Robbie clips, and we're all like, wow.
It's
beautiful.
It's the one post where you go on that clip section, and it has like 10 hearts on it. Because everyone in the chat was like, yeah, this is sick. Good job, Robbie. But yeah, I know we're going to have some frequent guests from our Fort Wayne scene. Sarah, Any spoilers?
Oh, I don't know. We've got a couple lined up, but you'll have to come see for yourself. Yeah, next episode.
Yeah, we're gonna keep having guests lined up, so
We're
keep your
gonna-
eyes peeled.
We're gonna try to make this a bi-weekly thing. We'll record, and then the next week the episode will be out, and then so we'll always be doing something. If you want to support us in any way, you can always follow me on Twitch at Homie House Scare, or on Twitter or X now, I guess. I don't know. And then I'm also making TikTok videos. I'll probably upload some highlights and stuff from this podcast to my TikTok. It's also Homie House Gear, so be on the lookout for that. I don't know if you have any social media at all. Or,
I tend to stay off.
Yeah, I tend to too, but I know you got to do it these days.
Yeah, I got a Discord, and that's about it. That's my plugin. So, which if there's a plugin I want to shout out to for you guys to pay attention to, the Fort Wayne Weekly or the Fort Wayne Melee Discord. You guys are ever looking for games or info in terms of our weeklies, in terms of the podcast, in terms of any outside activities, feel free to get yourself on that Discord and reach out, and we can happily provide that info for you. So.
Oh yeah, we also got a Homie House Discord. I forgot, but
Yep.
yeah,
And
we'll
that's
we'll
all.
plug that too. We'll throw that down in the comments.
Yeah. So on that end, I know we do want to talk about PR for a bit. Now it's been something in the works. Now keep in mind, guys, I'm going to lay out a few things to keep in mind with the PR. So first of all, I know I talked about goal early on in the podcast. Goal with the PR is to be able to help with turnout, give players something to work towards, and to help us incentivize these players to go to other regions and see how they perform, right? Now we have a few guidelines you got to follow for PR. For anyone that's curious, we have a start of PR restriction, and what that is you have to have a 2 weekly minimum to show up on the PR. Once you have the 2 weekly minimum, you are good to go forward. You'll be showing up on PR from that point onward. Now, the caveat there is you need to have at least 6 weeklies to show up at the end of season PR, with 24 weeklies in a season. So you have a lot of maneuverability on getting on the PR, but there are requirements to really show up, and we do make that attendance based. So something to keep in the back of your head. On that end, PR has had a lot of fluctuations. You and I both have seen our top 10 change in drastic ways. Now, granted, I will say top 4 has not changed too frequently. That has stayed pretty rock solid. But outside of the top 4, we've had some very volatile moments on PR, which has been awesome. So if you don't mind, Gare, would you like to do the formal announcement?
No. All right. Here we go. Fort Wayne, Indiana, Super Smash Bros. Melee 2023 Power Rankings. At number 11, we got myself. And number 10, you'll see Lil Bueno there. Now, our points were both really close between me and Bueno, but overall, Bueno beat my ass this year, so I have to hold that. He didn't really beat my ass. It was like last talk every game, but whatever. But whatever.
As a John, I can say Johns.
And then, speaking of, number 9, we have Rec,
Yeah.
local Samus main.
I think actually this season I had started out at 4th.
Yeah.
I've been depreciating this whole time.
Yeah. Happens to the best of us, you know?
Yeah.
Number 8, we got Fish representing Captain Falcon here in Fort Wayne.
Yep.
Fish is Toast's brother, so you know that you got that high-level practice at all times on deck.
Hell yeah.
Number 7, we got our favorite Peach main, Rusty Chicken.
Rusty is also our only top 10 player who uses box.
Oh yeah, Rusty plays on box. And Rusty Chicken has a 1-1 record with our Ice Climber player. That's crazy. What? Let's insane, yeah. So you'll see the top row here. Looks like Spacey Heaven. We got number 6, Bard.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Bard is a super consistent player, and while they do use Fox a lot, they also have a Valco that is as developed.
Oh yeah, I've played friendlies against that Falco. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, JD. Avoided playing me all season. It's whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't really have anything to say about the Falco.
Yeah, JD is a super consistent Valco player. There was a point where I thought I could take a set. Always thought I was on the cusp. I could never quite get it. And I think the last time I played JD, I got destroyed.
And then number 4, we have another Falco, Robbie. Robbie with the hot clips on the Discord.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, we got Voorhees, staple of our scene. Been around for a long time. I'm sure anyone in the Indiana scene knows Voorhees.
When I think of Fort Wayne, I think of Voorhees. That's honest.
That's valid.
If I had to say anything, Voorhees would be the teacher to pretty much everybody here.
Yeah.
He's super knowledgeable and always willing to help and share.
Mm-hmm. And then we do have Toast in number 2. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, Toast is the youngin' we all raised.
Yeah. Toast is the kid we neglected.
And as you can see, that's how they became a number 2 slotted Fox.
I could be wrong, but I believe Toast is the only one to have sets off of HPR on the top at all.
Toast is a super slick player, absolutely crazy. And if I remember right, between Voorhees, Toast, and HPR, all 3 have not only been on the state top 10 PR, but Toast and HPR in particular in the very recent past have performed extremely well on that PR. So keep that in mind. Toast and HPR are fairly close in skill, in my opinion.
Before we get to our number 1, we're going to shout out our Homie House honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
We got Jafar, which we mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Funniest guy around, and comes to Homie House, destroys absolutely everybody, and leaves, Always forgets his sweater over at my house.
And actually on that end, if you guys are curious, Jafar is also an outlier on PR. They could be placing anywhere from 2nd to 10th. They could be falling in line in any of those positions because they are a fantastic player, but it also revolves around work allowing them to perform. So.
Yeah. A lot of us are adults now,
Yeah. And then
our other most recent person who moved here that has sets on HPR is Prince Abu.
Mm-hmm.
Prince Abu famously beating Plup at EVO, like 2016, 2017, something like that. Just a amazing player overall. Really unique Jigglypuff.
Mm-hmm. And I think the recent tenor they've been showing up for a lot of local friendly get-togethers, but they've also been present for things like Fort Land and have done excruciatingly well at said locals. So they are performing as expected, I should say.
Oh yeah, definitely. But that leads us to our number 1. And this is our true Fort Wayne number 1. Mm-hmm. HPR. Hefty Pecker Rod.
And as you guys know, HPR is not only a top player in Fort Wayne, but a top player in Indiana.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure if they're going to do an Indiana ranking this year, but I think HPR would probably be 2nd this year.
Yep. Actually, on that end, this last season, for the Indiana PR, HPR was tied with
Coffee
for first.
Yeah.
So, and HPR has had a record in the past of getting first place, not once but several times on the full Indiana PR. So.
Yep, multiple time champ.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nice that we have a player like this in our scene. Not only that, HPR runs the fucking weeklies.
Yeah.
What other top player actually fucking runs the weeklies?
And HPR is able to do full TO work and at the weekly and still place first every time.
Yeah. Raking in that cash, going and getting some food, you already know.
And you get the classic Rodney Mead mug.
HPR has won multiple of these weeklies that we talk about with different characters, including Samus and Ice Climbers.
Yep. We have both convinced Rodney to run our mains. On my end, a lot of the weeklies were, hey Rodney, I won't make it. There needs to be a Samus. Can you cover me?
Rodney, all around, super helpful when it came to me personally starting up Homie House tournaments and with Start GG and everything. Always there, answer my stupid questions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So going forward after today, you guys are going to see that announcement then for PR as well on the Discord.
Oh yeah.
And hopefully you guys will have a lot to look forward to for next season.
So what do they have to do to get ranked next year?
So our season's already started. So you do have a long period of time to qualify, though. If I remember right, the last season lasted about 6 months. And this one should last about as long. The week after Thanksgiving was our kickoff. So keep in mind, these are the requirements. 2 weekly minimum to be on PR. That's to be formally on the PR on a week-by-week basis. We use a true skill format, so keep that in mind. That allows us to have a pretty accurate ranking system through the 6-month period, and will help kind of keep things consistent as you're working towards stuff. Now, with that PR in particular, that is the only requirement. Going forward, though, the end of season PR, which will happen after that 24-week period is over with, or 24-weekly period is over with. That's going to have a 6 tournament requirement, but that does include homie houses.
Yeah.
So you do have actually a few more opportunities than the 2 weekly minimum, or than the 6 weekly minimum to show up and perform and see how you do. After you hit that 6 weekly or tournament minimum, you're good to go. You will be on that final PR.
Well, if you're good enough.
Now, well, keep in mind, the graphic is going to highlight top 10 to top 14 typically, and you'll have a link on the Discord that will provide you with the full PR, and you'll be able to see every player's individual listing. And keep in mind, too, as you're going through the weeks, seeing how you stack up, you can consistently monitor yourself on a week-by-week basis and see how you stack up against everyone else.
Yeah, and then you can look at your ELO drop and you can cry in the car.
Yep. Have some depressing phone calls with some friends.
Some silent ride home, some silent ride homes from the weekly, no music, just fucking thinking about bracket,
Or you can also look at your player-to-player comparisons and see people's set results against each other, as well as how they've fluctuate in terms of rankings. So you got a lot of variables and info to work with, and it is another opportunity to improve, another opportunity to get more data. So,
all right, y'all, that's about it, about wrapping up this podcast, but I do want to let you know that we do have guests coming up. We have a couple scheduled, and if any of the Fort Wayne homies want to be a part, we'd love to have you on. Just reach out to one of us.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to get you guys on the show. One of the guests that we do have lined up coming up soon, something for you guys to look forward to. Nidus will be our first guest. So
oh, yeah.
You'll be able to see a fresh perspective of the Fort Wayne scene. You'll be able to learn a lot about Nidus next time. So it's going to be awesome.
Hell yeah.
Hope you guys really enjoyed this, and peace out.